Hello everyone, welcome to the Anime Recap Media YouTube channel. Please like the video, subscribe to help our channel and enjoy this full video.
In the Cathedral of Silvern, the Sternritter and Soldat gather before a stage that Jugrim Hashwolf and the Schutzstaffel stand on. As Ewok walks onto the stage from the side and stands in the center, Hashwolf commands those present to raise their Quincy crosses and salute him while Ewok expresses gratitude at all the Sternritter being here. After a moment of silence, Ewok informs the Wandenreich that he has an announcement to make and bids Uriu Ishida to come onto the stage. With Giselle Guel wondering why he is here, Ewok reveals that Uriu, the last Quincy and survivor, is his successor. All of the Sternritter are shocked by this, with Pipe Wakabrata chuckling at the decision and Baz B mentally wondering what is going on as he stares at Hashwolf. Moments later, in a meeting hall, Baz B punches the wall hard enough to dent it and declares that he does not understand this at all before inviting those around him to explain what is happening. Simultaneously in his throne room, Ewok lets blood drip from his hand into a small cup emblazoned with the Wandenreich emblem before handing it to a kneeling Uriu, who refrains from performing the ritual in order to inquire about why he has been appointed as Ewok's successor. Surprised by Uriu questioning this, Ewok asserts that it should be obvious if he thinks about it for a moment. To illustrate this, Ewok asks Uriu why he is still alive. Simultaneously, Ichigo shrugs off his robe and walks to a cloth-covered table in the temple, where he sets down the longer blade of his Shikai Zangetsu before Ichigo walks in. Shortly afterward, Ichigo finds himself standing in a long, dark, raining hallway filled with green light and a stone path. From afar, Ichigo explains that this is a sacred place which not even the royal guard can enter without the permission of the Soul King, and that he will be testing Ichigo to see if he is worthy of surpassing the existence of Shinigami, prompting Ichigo to begin walking. Suddenly, in the Sarity, the pinwheels at a vendor station stop spinning just before the Schattenbereich engulfs the buildings and encircling wall, replacing the entire city with the Wandenreich's city while Ewok, Uriu, and Hashwolf stand atop Silvern, while the Sternritter walk down the street toward the Shinigami. Ewok invites Uriu and Hashwolf to join him in the last 9 days. Within the Sarity, Captain Commander Shunsui Kyoraku looks out over the frozen city with his lieutenant. Ewok sits on his throne overlooking the city as Uriu Ishida stands beside him. Ewok declares that the Shinigami could never comprehend this and explains how the Quincy had to flee from the human world to Soul Society 1,000 years ago after they lost the war and were left with nowhere else to go, where they were able to use Rishi to form a hidden city in the shadows of the Sarity, where the Gode 13 did not expect them to hide and call it the Wandenreich. Hashwolf approaches Shunsui and Nano to inform them that the Wandenreich simply appeared within the Shikamaku once more rather than breaking through it, just as they did last time they invaded. Though Nano was shocked by this, Shunsui thanks Hashwolf and welcomes him to the Captain Commander's office. With a doorway appearing in the air behind Askin, Mayuri's face emerges from the light within as he notes that the Quincy operating from within the shadows meant that there were two worlds existing in the same space without ever interacting, which he finds to be absurd. Stepping out of the doorway with both himself and his lieutenant, clad in garments emitting bright light, Mayuri clarifies that he does not mind absurdity and responds to his subordinate's shock over his attire by explaining that the data he collected from the last invasion let him deduce that the Wandenreich were somehow making use of shadows. Declaring that he simply modified his laboratory to not emit any shadows as a result, Mayuri invites Askin to find out whether his department is intelligent in name only before he leaves to Askin's irritation. Approaching Baz B with his lieutenant, Ranjiku Matsumoto, 10th Division Captain Toshiro Hitsugaya admits that it is too late to stop the Wandenreich from getting through before pointing out that Baz B's flames did not get through. Elsewhere, at the former location of his family mansion, 2nd Division Lieutenant Marichio Omedo, BG9 slams into the ground near them, leading Marichio to recognize him as the one who stole his captain's Bankai. Hitsugaya attacks him with Shinku no Kori no Yeba, pitting Baz B against a nearby pillar with a large hollow blade of ice. Simultaneously, Marichio is pierced through the shoulder and slammed against a wall by 3 tendrils from BG9. While Marichio refuses to let him harm Monreo, BG9 reveals his Rishi minigun and opens fire on a cursing Marichio, only to find the barrel broken off seconds later as 2nd Division Captain Sui Feng holds the broken part in one hand. A grinning Sui Feng fully unleashes the wind-like Kido around her body, moves down next to BG9, and identifies this as Mukyu Shumko prior to unleashing a powerful blast from her fist that sends BG9 hurtling back. Back in the former SRDI, Askin examines Mayuri between his fingers and gives up on fighting him. Removing his tattered mantle, Baz B brings up Hitsugaya's statement about blocking flames of his level and expresses disappointment at the latter not having his Bankai right now, since he would have loved to prove that he could melt the ice of Hitsugaya's Bankai with just one finger, leading Hitsugaya to slash a wave of ice at him. When Baz B casually melts the ice with a wall of flames in front of himself and asserts that it will not reach him. Simultaneously, upon seeing a tendril hurtling toward her from the dust cloud, Sui Feng grabs it and swings around to slam BG9 into another building. Sui Feng is caught off guard when BG9 impales her wrist with one of his tendrils, catches up to her in midair, and engulfs her in a massive explosion. Baz B fires Burner Finger 2 at him, creating 2 vertical slashes of fire that travel across the ground, burn through the ice, and cut into Hitsugaya himself, breaking his Zanpakuto as he collapses. Suddenly, Kang lands behind Baz B and asserts that he will be taking over the fight from here because of their agreement to leave the captains to the ones who stole their Bankai. Meanwhile, in the Shinigami Research and Development Institute, Kizuki Urahara contacts Captain Mayuri Kuratsuchi, sharing his discovery of how to reclaim stolen Bankai. Urahara begs him not to hang up, but Mayuri ends the transmission using a device in his headpiece. However, Urahara appears behind him, saying it was all a joke. 8-Gun's technicians confirm the locations of all the captains and lieutenants while deploying insects to infiltrate the Wandenreich's systems. Despite initial difficulties, they continue trying to establish a connection. Urahara reveals black pills called Shin Ayaku from within his robe. Urahara draws a parallel between an Arrancar's resurrection and his Shinigami's Bankai, stating that both involve releasing the true form of their power from their Zanpakuto. Therefore, Urahara suggests that Quincy should be able to steal resurrection just like they can steal Bankai. They have not stolen a single resurrection from the Arrancar, even though they forcibly recruited some Arrancar's soldiers. Urahara proposes 2 possible explanations for this. First, it could be that the Quincy are completely unable to steal resurrection. Second, there might be a disadvantage associated with stealing Arrancar powers. Mayuri deduces that Urahara's research has ruled out the first possibility, meaning that the Quincy should be capable of stealing resurrection. Therefore, the logical conclusion is that there must be some sort of drawback or disadvantage involved in stealing these powers from Arrancar. He suggests that if Shinigami temporarily absorb a small amount of hollow power, their Bankai will become poisonous to Quincy. As Kang processes this information, he witnesses Hitsugaya standing up with a new ice wing forming on his back. Suifang activates her Bankai Jacobo Reikoben and orders Maruchio to brace himself. In response to BG9 questioning why her Bankai is with her, she suggests he analyze it himself. Suifang fires the missile at BG9, creating a massive explosion that pierces through the clouds. Meanwhile, Kang attempts to attack Hitsugaya with shards of ice, but they stop and expand before reaching him. Concerned, Kang attacks with Shei Jinzhao, but Hitsugaya points his sword down and releases a wave of ice that freezes the energy blast and engulfs Kang. As a result, Kang ends up frozen inside a massive cross of ice. Mask and Masculine crashes on them with considerable power, leaving a massive crater. Ikaku, Yumichika, and Hisaji, on the other hand, manage to avoid the onslaught at the last second. Ikaku and Yumichika hits Mask with his Zanpakuto, but Mask effortlessly stops their attack. Meanwhile, Bambietta is out walking with her friends. Bambietta laments about not being notified that Komamura is her opponent and inquires about the location of her pals. Frustrated and humiliated, she sets off a tremendous explosion that destroys everything and injures more Shinigami. She resolves to track down her buddies and make them pay for embarrassing her. Komamura, on the other hand, steps in and orders her to stop. Shinji takes charge of the situation and tells Komamura that he can handle Bambietta, allowing Komamura to leave. As Shinji grins at Bambietta, she starts to feel the world around her warping and twisting. Shinji explains that his Shikai Sakanade is causing this effect, reversing her sense of direction and rendering her unable to fight effectively. Bambietta responds by throwing Rishi projectiles and warning Shinji not to underestimate her. The projectiles cause more explosions around them, and Bambietta triggers a larger explosion centered on herself, engulfing multiple buildings. Yuarch remains somber despite Mask's apparent incapacity, while Bambietta suddenly feels a spike of Crimson Rishi protruding out of her breast. Yuarch instructs the Sternritter to cheer when Bambietta's Quincy, Volständig, activates, enveloping her in a gigantic column of Rishi topped by a pentacle. Komamura and Shinji are on the lookout for this development. Bambietta says that she couldn't utilize Quincy, Volständig, while controlling Komamura's Bankai. However, now that it has left her, she thanks to Shinigami for enabling her to unleash her Quincy strength. As several other Sternritter, including Kang and BG9, activate their Quincy, Volständig, and pillars of multicolored Rishi, Yuarch proclaims that the Shinigami will soon regret regaining their Bankai. He declares that the hope-filled battles are over, and true despair begins now.
How was the video? We hope it was good. If so, please check these videos. Also, please comment down your thoughts and your suggestions for future videos. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing now to show the support to our channel. We hope to see you soon with another video right in this channel. Have a nice day.